Hey everyone, it's Kelly. Thanks for joining me. I am back today with a new 12x12 scrapbook process video for the Cut Shop. And today I'm going to be using the gallery wall cut file, and I do have a Cricut Design Space tutorial to start. As you can see, I already have the cut file on the design screen, and I'm going to take a little time to slice apart this cut file. I am going to use a majority of the icons that are included in this cut file set, but I need to resize the images within the cut file because I'm going to use those two frames to frame my photos, and the frames are a little bit smaller than what I intend to print my photos at. So my photos are going to print at 2.5 by 3.5 inches, and I need to fit all of these icons on a 12 by 12 background. So I'm going to slice this apart, resize the frames so I can fit my photos behind the frames, and then resize all of the icons to fit around the frames. I use the slice feature pretty regularly when I am using the cut files. Another option would always be to use the hide contour feature, but because I'm using so many images within this cut file set, I just find it faster to slice it apart and then use the cut file that way. But always keep in mind you could use the contour feature to hide the images that you are not wanting to use if that's the way you prefer to isolate the images within the cut file. So to use the slice feature, what you're going to do is you're going to insert a shape, position it over the part of the cut file that you're wanting to separate, hold down the shift key while selecting the shape and the cut file set, and then go down to the bottom right hand side of the screen and hit slice, and that will separate the images within the cut file set. So I've skipped ahead a little bit and I have all of the icons sliced apart from that original cut file. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go back into my images folder and I'm going to pull up that same cut file and I'm going to use it as a reference because I want to build my layout on the design screen and I want to position all of those icons in their original placement. So I want to have the family on the bottom right, and then I want to have all the frames in the same spot, and I want it to look just like the cut file. But I need to resize these icons, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, so my photos will fit behind those frames. So I'm going to start my resizing process by figuring out how large I need those frames to be. So I'm going to insert a square and I'm going to unlock the dimensions so I can enter the 2.5 by 3.5 inches because that's how large my photos are going to be. So I'm going to do that for a vertical photo and a horizontal photo because I am going to have one of each on my layout. And I do want to mention just really quickly, if you happen to just stumble upon my channel and you're a Cricut user and you like to use cut files, I do have a couple playlists on my channel of different Cricut Design Space tutorials. So be sure to check that out if that's something that you would be interested in. All right, so I have those rectangles there to represent my photos, and now I've unlocked the dimensions of the frames in the cut file, and I am just positioning that rectangle, that would be my photo, right on top of the frame, and then just resizing the frame to fit the photo. And that is the easiest way that I have found to resize cut files if you're trying to use them with photos. Just know the size of your photo, and then you can insert a shape to represent whether or not it's a rectangle, a square, a circle, whatever your photo shape is, and then resize the cut file to fit your photo. I have found this to be the easiest way to get the size correct the first time because I hate wasting paper. And if it's something that I'm not quite sure of, I will do a test run with just some copy paper or some scrap paper just to make sure that the sizing is correct. But this has been a tried and true way of making sure that I get it right the first time around. All right, so now that the frames are sized, which is the most important part because that's where my photos are going to be positioned, I'm going to start bringing in the other icons from the cut file set and positioning them on this 12 by 12 background exactly as they are on the cut file set that is on the right hand side, because that is how I want my layout to look when I'm ready to put things onto paper. And when I jumped ahead earlier in the video, when I was slicing everything apart, I did go to the templates and insert a scrapbook layout. That is what that 12 by 12 square is on the background there, where I'm positioning all of those cut file images. So that is something that you can do also to make sure everything will fit within your 12 by 12 layout. So I know that I want to use pattern paper to cut these icons, and I only want to use about 3 or 4 patterns because it's going to be fairly busy having all of these cut file images on one 12 by 12 background. So I want to cut the patterns and keep the colors in a visual triangle just to help your eye dance around the layout. So I'm going through these icons and I'm picking different ones that are in a visual triangle, and I'm changing them all to the same color because this will signify to Cricut when I am sending these images to the cutting mat that all of the icons that are the same color are going to be cut on the same sheet of paper. So to change the colors, what I'm doing is I'm just selecting one of the icons, changing it to just a random color, and then I'm going over to the color sync tab, and I have that hello in the blue color, and I want to drag that ampersand down to the same blue, and then the word family down to that same blue color also, and that just syncs those colors super quick, and I think it's the fastest way to do it. You could also just select the same color for each icon, but I just find this to be just a little bit faster. So as you can see, I did jump ahead and I have 3 light purple icons and then also a darker purple icon. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the make it button and send these to the cutting mat, and you can see how they are all grouped together. So I'm going to use a 6x6 paper pad to cut these different images, and some of the images were a little too large to fit them on the same cutting mat with a 6x6 paper. So what you can do is you can click on the image, and then a little icon will come up that has 3 little dots, and you can click send to new mat, and then you can select a different mat. Now some of these I did have to use 2 6x6 papers because, like I mentioned, they both won't fit on a single 6x6 piece of paper, but that's no problem. And by sending it to a new mat and selecting a new color, that will let Cricut know that I am going to cut it on a completely separate piece of paper. Now some of these will fit on a 6x6 paper, but I had to slide the icons around a little bit here. So you can do that on this edit screen, just move things around to fit them on the cutting mat where you want them to go, depending on the size of paper that you're wanting to use. All right, so jumping ahead to the layout, I already have my photos positioned behind those frames and I've already adhered those together. And I am going to add just a little bit of color to the background. So I'm going to add a layer of clear gesso. This paper that I am using is from a 12x12 white cardstock pad that I picked up at Walmart, and so it's pretty thin, so I do want to add the gesso because it is going to warp the paper slightly even with the gesso because it is such a thin cardstock, but it is textured and it holds up well. Once I get it in a page protector, nobody's gonna notice the warping or even see that it's there. So I'm going to use a Distress Oxide ink and just spray some water and just add a splash of color behind where those frames are going to be positioned. And now I'm going to start bringing in all of the icons from the cut file. So I'm going to jump ahead, and I have all of the images from the cut file set positioned on my 12x12 background, and I just had my laptop open next to me so that way I could use it as a reference so I knew where all of the images needed to go. And I decided not to use the clock image from the cut file set because I cut it in that same blue pattern paper that those hexagons are cut in. And because it was positioned right next to that blue frame, I just felt like it was too much blue in that area. So I went through the Pink Paisley Paige Evans Pick Me Up collection die cut pack, and I can't remember if I mentioned this, but the pattern papers that I used are all from that same collection also. But I went through the die cut pack and found a couple die cuts that I like, and I used that little banner and then that camera die cut and substituted it for the clock, and I really like how that looks. I also brought in that flower die cut that's right next to the frame. I just wanted to add a little pop of color in that area. And you saw me bring in another piece of white cardstock just a few seconds ago, and I started to lay some of the photos and some of the die cuts on that background. As I was putting this together, I was worried that this was a little too busy, so I was thinking about maybe switching up the design, but I decided to go ahead and stick with it and just go ahead and get everything adhered down. I do go off camera in just a moment and add some gold stitching after I had everything adhered down, and I added the gold stitching to the arrows and then to that plus sign just in the yellow cut file images that I have on the background. And I positioned that lower hexagon a little bit too far to the right, and I was trying to lift it up to move it over a little bit, but it wouldn't budge. I used liquid adhesive on pretty much all of these images, so I couldn't get it to lift, and I was worried about tearing the paper. So I'm just going through some of the die cuts to see if I can find something that will fit there. And I decide on that floral image, and I actually adhere it down with some pop dots and then change my mind. But now I am going to go ahead and pull off that top tab. That was just what held the paper into that paper pad. I was thinking about adding some stitching to that banner, but decided not to. I'm going to go ahead and add a few more florals just kind of around the page, just for another visual triangle, just to help your eye dance around the layout. Some of these are stickers and some of them are die cuts, and some of this, I believe this one was a sticker. It had a little bit too much of a white border around it, so I just fussy cut some of the white border just to make it a little bit smaller. And you know what, I take that back. I'm pretty sure that that floral that I was just cutting the border, I'm pretty sure that came from the die cut pack. And another thing that I have noticed when I use liquid adhesive on that fun foam is that it doesn't dry very quickly. So every once in a while I would bump my photos with my arm as I was working and my photo would shift. So you're going to see me play with the photos every once in a while because I am accidentally moving them and I don't want them to dry crooked. So if you see me kind of shifting the photo around, that's all that I'm doing. Now I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and add some 3D foam dots and also some 3D glue dots to some of these die cuts. So I'm going to add them to the florals and then also that camera die cut. So this is where I decided to go ahead and swap out that floral at the bottom of the layout, and I'm going to use the same floral image that I have going on throughout the layout, and I like how that looks just a little bit better. I am going to trim down the white border around that sticker just a little bit, just like I did for the floral die cut at the top of the layout. And I just realized that I haven't really talked about the photos that I'm using on the layout today. So these are 2 photos that were taken during a family photo session that we had done last September. I've mentioned before in previous videos that my sister is a professional photographer and she got all of us together. And when I say all of us, I mean all of my siblings and my parents and my nieces and nephews. And we had a large family photo session. And it was so much fun, and I'm so thankful to have these photos because this is the first time that we've had professional photos done of my entire family. So it's the first time that I've had photos with my siblings and with my parents, and they all turned out so great. My sister does such a beautiful job taking photos. She is very talented at photography and it's definitely her calling, and I'm so happy that she has found something that she's passionate about and that she loves to do. It really shows through her work. So these are 2 of the photos of my husband and my son Aiden and myself, and I just love how they turned out. The place that we went to have the photos taken was just absolutely beautiful, as you can see in the photos. And I will hold the layout a little bit closer to the camera a little bit later on so you can see the photos in a little bit more detail, and I will have still shots at the end also where you can see it a little bit closer. Okay, so getting back to the layout, I'm just trying to find some odds and ends to add to the layout. I did add that wonderful sticker underneath that floral die cut on that top hexagon, and I really like how that looks. I feel like it really finished off that top hexagon. This layout didn't really need a whole lot of embellishing because it's already pretty busy with all of the different cut file images, but I like how the cut file really fills up the page. I did also add a moth sticker right next to the vertical photo because there was a little bit of a bald spot between the word hello and then the ampersand and the frame. So I just wanted to fill that in just a little bit. And here's where I'm going to hold it up to the camera a little bit closer so you can see it in a little bit more detail. And here's where you can see the gold stitching and the photos. I'm going to bring up some still shots, and this video is coming to an end. I do want to thank you all so much for watching, and I really do want to encourage you to head to the Cut Shop to check out all of the cut files that are available. This cut file is such an awesome cut file. There are so many images within the single cut file set that you could really do a lot of layouts just with this single cut file. So please remember to head to the Cut Shop, check everything out. If you have any questions about any of the techniques or any of the products that I use, please let me know in the comments below, and I will be back again soon. Thanks so much.